All right.
Okay. I'm Sean Riley. This is Randy Kwok. We did our computer science project on how music can be used and how it can be altered using various methods in Java. Oh. Okay, so what is JFugue? JFugue is a jar that allows MIDI files, and MIDI files are strings of music, and JFugue allows for a simpler interpretation of MIDI files to be used in Java. For example, the MIDI files itself are initially more complex, but JFugue allows for simpler strings to be used, and it allows for simpler methods as well. So, for example, player.play here. There's a notation that we'll talk about later, but C5 quarter just plays a C note with the duration.
Okay, so JFugue has many uses. Because it works with strings, we can use many string processes, and we can alter music that way. So here are a few uses we can do. So you can create simple melodies from scratch by typing in like what Sean did earlier, like C5Q, and a bunch of other things like that. And you can also change existing melodies by taking pre-existing MIDI files, running them through JFugue, turning them to strings, and then working them from there. You can also create rhythms and beats, with an already pre-existing MIDI file, or your own MIDI file from scratch.
Okay, so excuse me. Adding on to what Randy was saying, music by its very nature is flexible, so JFugue allows us to write methods that take the string and just simply using code to alter it and use the rules of music because it's very scalar, and what we analyzed was very scalar melodies. So based on those facts, you can make similar melodies that are variations of the original one.
So these are a few things we can do with JFugue. You can change the instrument, you can change the speed, you can change the tempo, because JFugue works with strings, you can pretty much change anything about them. Yeah, you can you can make your own original melody, or you can make an alternate melody.
And this is our process in making our project. So
let's get you perfect next year.
At first, we had to take our MIDI file and use a renderer. And the renderer takes the original file, the original MIDI file, and it converts it into a string that's readable by JFugue, so we can use it in our methods later. And then from there, unfortunately, the renderer doesn't do a superb job at this, so we had to write our own method to pre-process or clean up the string and rid of extremities that we didn't actually need. And then from there, we actually changed the music.
So when we first started working with JFugue, we thought it'd be pretty easy because it's basically all strings. So we thought this would be the next thing in Java, the next big step. So yeah, so we thought we only need a little bit of musical knowledge, and there's many different uses, and we thought we didn't need to do that much Java or that much pre-processing.
That's a sad monkey. Yeah. MIDI files themselves are very difficult to understand, and we spent, unfortunately, we spent a lot of our time trying to understand the MIDI files instead of using JFugue more so. That created a lot of problems for us, and but we got over that by writing methods that create variations on music instead of completely from scratch, because that's very complex.
So like our original idea was we make an original melody, then we then ask the user like if they like it or not, and if they do like it, we'll ask them like what variations they want on it, and like we can just like branch off, so like a tree thing. And if they didn't like it, we just created another melody from scratch and just do the same thing over and over again. And we didn't really have that much time to do it, so we decided to like use pre-existing MIDIs and just alter them because it's faster and easier.
Yeah, so here was the basis of our methods that change the music around. So originally we had a method called generate note, and this was a very simple method. We didn't actually include it in the final project because it was just to help us get a basic understanding of what JFugue could do, and that method just consisted of generating a random note from the C major scale. And then when we actually got more into it, we realized we had to process the string, so that was a pre-processed string. And then our three methods here we actually analyzed, and this is change tempo, which changes the tempo, change rhythm, and addChords, which mess with the actual melody itself.
So this is how JFugue reads its notes and strings. So first you write down like what note you want to play. Then you type in a number between 1 and 7. 8. Yeah. So I don't play it. I don't play the note in that octave. Yeah, if you don't put this out automatically and play in that octave. Then you like type in like how long you want the note, like half note, quarter note, eighth note. And then tempo was specified at the beginning of the string.
Yep. Okay, so this is going into change rhythm. This is after we've already processed the JFugue string. So it takes the string and it splits it between the notes. And then we make an array list of all the notes in the string. And then after that, what it actually does is, like if we go back, if you remember, right here, so duration, the different durations for music, it's just the basic ones. It's 16th, eighth, quarter, half, and whole with durations. So if we go back, so when this loops, whatever note it finds, say it finds a C5 quarter, it'll take it and it'll recognize that it's a quarter, right? And it'll change it to an eighth, which is indicated by an I. And another example, if it was a C5 eighth, it would be a C5 16th instead. So that was change rhythm. Yeah. And then after that, it assigns the new duration to the note that it analyzed, and then it makes a new JFugue string and returns a new JFugue string.
And this is a small bit from code. So this is converting quarter notes to eighth notes. So we use substring, so we get like the note. We substring it from the beginning to the second to last, so it cuts off the note duration. And then at the end of the note, we just add the note that we just add the length that we want, and we just repeat it
For all the different durations that it includes.
So here's a summary of changeRhythm. So changeRhythm analyzes, like before, it analyzes the length of a note, and it replaces it with two notes that are half of that length. So for example, a half note would be 2 quarter notes, or a quarter note would be 2 eighth notes. This ensures that the original melody isn't made longer or made shorter, and it's still the same length as the original was.
All right, and so our other method that we used to alter the melodies was addChords, and then we have a helper method detect BeatOne. So when we originally wanted to change or add chords to melodies, we thought about what notes would want to be emphasized. And generally in music, it's the first beat or the third beat, depending on your time signature. But we decided to stick with just the very first beat of melody. So detect BeatOne is a method that returns all of the notes in a string that are on the very first beat. And then, just summarizing this, from that, addChords uses those notes to pretty much add chords to those notes and returns that string. Yeah. Yeah, and then that's it. We have an example also. Alan fell asleep. Okay, so here is our here we have an original. Actually, I'll start from the very beginning. We've got like the renderer I was talking about earlier takes the MIDI file and it creates it returns a string that can be processed by JFugue, and then from there we've made methods to alter the melody. But we're going to play the original one first to show you what it sounds like before our methods are used. And this is just to help me with the last line. This is just Frere Chakra. And then that just repeats.
We should come with this one at a time.
Yeah, and then, okay, so we'll do this one at a time. Our first method, changeRhythm. This is gonna, if you'll listen closely, this is gonna cut the note duration of each note in half. So it'll sound like double time initially. Yeah, so if you notice, the difference between those two was the note duration. So we can let's go to changeRhythm real quick. So right here, it took the string and it found in Frere Jacques most of the notes are quarter notes. So what we have here, all the notes that were quarter notes were then changed to eighth notes. So that eighth notes are indicated by an I. So that was that. And then our second method that we had was addChords. So we'll do addChords and changeRhythm at the same time. So this will be adding, and addChords also has the helper method detect BeatOne. So detect BeatOne, like we talked about earlier, is going to return an index of all of the notes that are on the first beat. So addChords uses that, and it adds a chord based on where those notes are. So that's a summary of addChords, which is
Play it right now, maybe.
right there. And then it's called Frere.
No, it's called MIDI.
Oh. What?
I just undo it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Frere's the original.
No, it's Frere.
That's not as doing it wrong.
Oh wait, yeah, we just uncommented it. But and as you can see, we also have it printed out. And it just repeats. But yeah, that was after we had the chords. And we also had another kind of just an extra method that randomly selects an instrument, because what's cool about JFugue, that's a sitar. We had a method that it's changed random instrument, and we went through and selected the 6 best instruments in JFugue. And yeah,
You're
that's
welcome.
it. Yeah, we're done. Okay.
Cool, thanks. That's neat. I would be excited to take this even further in the future.
Yeah.